Hello, this is Ron with Coherent, and what I'm going to walk through today is how we can utilize Spark Shell to share Excel raters or really any Excel file that requires collaboration internally through an organization and still maintain control of the individual IP that makes this rater or this model so impactful to your organization. And we utilize our tool Spark Shell to do this. So just to start off with this, you'll see that I have up on my screen a group health rater. It gives us the ability to quote a number of group health plans. And what we typically hear from peers in this space is that collaboration is often difficult. We're sending multiple Excel files out. When we make updates, we send those next ones out. And often clients tell us that there's no way to ensure that they're always using the latest and greatest version. And ultimately, somebody has to reconcile this. Well, with Coherent Spark, we can very quickly spin up the ability to bring not only control into the space, but also make updates incredibly simple. So on the right side of my screen here, you're going to see the Coherent Assistant. So I can utilize the Coherent Assistant to create this shell, or think of this shell as essentially a user interface, but it's much more than that. It's also an entire set of control tools that's going to put in things like traceability, be able to actually account for every single scenario that's evaluated through this process. So without further ado, I'm going to walk you through a couple of high-level steps here. Of course, we already know, how do we get started in Spark? Or Shell for that matter? Well, we have to define what our inputs and outputs are. And that's what you're going to see up here at the top. When we come down here to configure settings, there's some things that we can include here that are specific to Shell. Things like controlling how many sheets we're going to include. We've got some very quick, just 3 steps that you can walk by that'll tell you kind of the who, what, when, where for configuring this. I'll go ahead and close out of this. And you'll see that when I land at this screen, all the sheets that exist in this Excel, I can choose which ones I'm going to show, which ones I'm going to hide. In this case, I only want my end users that are going to be quoting plans through this rater to see a singular sheet, and we're going to call that plan design. I'll hit next, and this is where the control portion of this comes in. I can do things like require logins to protect unauthorized access. One thing we're going to always want to do is make sure that we're selecting auto update. This allows one person or multiple people in the organization, depending upon your configuration, to push updates out to the masses. And again, you're ensuring that that control feature is in place. If I make a change, it gets populated out to all the other folks within the organization. And then finally, if I protect this, I'm going to lock it down and ensure that I don't have errant files running around that I can't control. So once we've walked through this, the last thing I'm going to have here is, do I want to include a submit button? I have a lot of clients that kind of iterate through this, and I'll show you how that looks and feels once we create the shell. And then at a certain point in time, when they've finalized, they actually want to go through and hit submit. Maybe the business is going to be bound, or we're going to send a formal RFP response in the case of group health. They'll utilize that submit button to be that one point in time, and then we can use that to trigger ancillary actions downstream. Can also finally just include some guidance text, show folks the who, what, when, where of what they're going to be doing here. And I'll finally get to this last step. So we've hit 3 steps just to kind of bring you into the fray here, and I'll say create this shell. So this is now going to go through and prompt me to upload a model of this service into Spark. And I'm going to go ahead and just call this a certain name. We've got that version control that makes Spark so good, right? And this is going to then create that upload into Coherent Spark. And that's going to be what we're calling. So that's the key delineation to make here, is we're not running Excel on the user's machine anymore. When we actually go and want to execute different plan scenarios, that's going to be calling Coherent Spark. It's going to be surfacing the latest information and bringing that down into this user interface that we've developed through Shell. So that's converted over in that short process. It's now going to create the Shell file. So the next thing it's going to ask me to do here as it goes through and creates this is it's going to ask me to save a one-off, or now save the created shell. So I'm going to call this group health shell, and we'll save this on my account. And what we will then be greeted with here, you'll see that our shell is ready. And what do we have? We have a singular tab, right? So we brought that control piece into the ecosystem. Folks can't see the who, what, when, where on the back end of the Excel file. But if we do things like make changes to, say, our deductible, you'll see that that plan information updates nearly in real time. And you can do things like enforced data validation. We're seeing that take place here in the case of deductibles. If I still want to make some changes, say, to ER visit costs, I can make those iteratively, and then at a certain point in time, hit that submit button, and that's going to send that final response into Spark. So I hope this was a good comprehensive video on how you can leverage Spark in the group health space to increase collaboration across your organization and ensure that you're still maintaining control. If you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call at Coherent. Thanks.